Good morning. My name is Zachary, Delano, Middleton, and I want to present my business, which is called Grace to Cultivate. If I were to put it in a theme for today, it's a company designed to cultivate happier teachers and better students. And so the best way I think I can cast vision is if I can give a big picture vision of what I do, and then inside that big picture vision, what I want to do is to tell my own story. A special thanks to the 1 Million Cups. The way that I heard about 1 Million Cups was through a coworker, a guy named Dean Smedley. And what he did was he said, that there is a group of entrepreneurs who meet every Wednesday at 9 a.m. and they gather around a cup of coffee. And so the big picture vision for it is a 1 million entrepreneurs around a cup of coffee. And so I thought that was really cool. And so from there, later on, checked out the website. And one of the things that's cool about the big vision of what you guys do is there's a vision for giving everyone a seat at the table. And that's something that this business is about as well. And it just makes a whole lot of sense. Also want to give a shout out to Kingdom Culture Media, a friend of mine, a guy named Shantae Darby. He's doing the video today. Does some incredible video work. He actually even has a studio. I know a lot of entrepreneurs do podcasts and that sort of thing. They do some incredible work there. Also, I would like to just communicate that I want to use this content for this presentation for digital content. And so if anybody does not want to be filmed or anything like that, most of it will be, of course, focused at the stage, but just giving you that opportunity. And last but not least, I want to thank you guys for being willing to hear someone else's vision, dream, etc. I believe that teachers deserve to be paid more and can be through creative yet ethical means of entrepreneurship. If I were to cut that in half, happier teachers make better students, all right? And so when I was thinking about this particular presentation, I think about Jen Roberson a few weeks ago. She talked about storytelling and what it looks like to not only talk about the solution, but also examine the problem, to engage the villains, if you will. Also, I like Adam Grant and a lot of what he does with organizational psychology. And what I want to do is to talk about the problem that I think this business engages. First is the teacher pay problem. All you have to do is open up the newspaper, scroll through your timeline, and we hear about such a high turnover as it pertains to teacher pay. Not just pay, but there are other issues that are tied to why teachers are transitioning, but I think that this business can provide a solution in that area. The second one is being able to positively impact students in high need areas. One of the organizations that does a really good job, they're a nonprofit, we're for-profit, but I think about groups like the Abbott organization. Their thesis is that one of the reasons why a large percentage of first-generation college graduates are not able to, or those who go to college if they're the first generation within their families, is because of a lack of study skills and note-taking strategy, or that there needs to be an increase in that area. And so that's what they work on, as well as the groups like the TRIO program, which is a federally funded program, has about 8 different spaces. Most people think about Upward Bound, but giving a more holistic vision for students that are coming out of tougher areas. And so there are ways in which I think that we can partner with those type of organizations. Last but not least, teacher turnover isn't the only issue right now within our cultural climate, our economic climate. Also, we see a high amount of employee turnover, and I think that this provides a solution for owners and leaders that are trying to retain employees through leadership development within organizations. I love a book by Tom Rath. A lot of people are familiar with it in terms of personality assessments, called Strength Finders. And in Strength Finders, it says that employees are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their work environment if they're working in their strength zones. And so the proposed solution that I have within this business model is a business that empowers teachers to lead professional leadership and team builder workshops in schools and in corporations. This is the future goal of where I want it to be, but it's called the P.U.S.H Leadership Network of Consulting. And we would have a full-time operational staff, and we would contract with current teachers. It would seem more like a ride-share model, Uber, Lyft. And our target audience would be schools, AVID programs, TRIO programs, sports teams that have a vision beyond sports, companies and nonprofits that want to see strengths explorers, strength finders, that sort of thing. The reason for the name P.U.S.H, it's an acronym. A lot of different reading in this subject matter, everything from Good to Great, Jim Collins, E-Myth, Michael Gerber. There's even some letter from Birmingham jail, King's engagement with, Dr. King's engagement with Funtown. But putting all those together for a vision for P, helping others to see their purposeful passion, utility or target audience, skill that gives them a competitive advantage to a certain degree, and last but not least, honor that undergirds it all. My story, as it pertains to this business, is I jokingly say that I'm a former social studies teacher that failed educational politics. I was asked to make some certain concessions in my the way that I approached certain students versus others that I didn't think it was fair for the entire group, and that led me to turn in my letter of resignation. And even though I have a love and a passion for helping young people, understanding that I'm wired in a way that what does it look like to help in a non-traditional way? And so that led me to finding a lot of different ways to help young people, but just in a different vein. Currently, my full-time job, I'm a life advisor at Oliver Gospel Mission across the street. And it's a homeless shelter. And I have an opportunity to work with life skills for those who are older. And with the business, I have an opportunity to work with those who are younger. And so it kind of is full circle. I'm also a YA fiction author. This is my first book. It's called Running After Delano. My full name is Zachary Delano Middleton. I was named after my great uncle who was killed during the Orangeburg Massacre. And what I did was I wrote a book very similar to Kill a Mockingbird meets Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. And it's a vision for, my father actually grew up in the same house, shared the same room with Delano. And what was it like to look at civil rights from the perspective of a child, right? What did that look like specifically here in South Carolina? It was actually featured in the January edition of the Kirkus Review Journal, which is how librarians pick up books. And in January, I plan to launch a book series that's called Rashard Freeman Teenage Entrepreneur. So if you were a kid and you remember Encyclopedia Brown, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boy, that sort of thing. Well, I want to do a book series similar, but the kids are not solving detective mysteries. They're doing problem solving in the nonprofit and for-profit way, and that will be the book series. And the year after that I'm working on currently is, this is very similar to Chronicles of Narnia, but set in the inner city. It's called The Backstories of the Trampoline Academy. And so that's kind of what I do, just kind of a passion project and joy. But the business model that I'll kind of break down, you'll be able to see a visual of what that looks like in the day-to-day. If I were talking to a school district, I would say that this is an artistic engagement with social and emotional learning. If you're my age, we would call it an artist in residence, but that's how the school systems are seeing it today. I do 3 different leadership workshops. One focuses on study skills, note-taking strategies, and life skills. It's called 12 Ways School Matters in Real Life. Engaging the question, if you ever talk to young people and they say, how is this learning going to help me in real life? Well, this is how it is, how we're going to do that. And so the relevancy of certain parts of school. Also, I work with older kids when we do workplace professionalism. So we're talking about everything from the why for the what of work to resume writing, to what does it look like to transition within a job? What does it look like to negotiate? What does it look like to develop a strategy in terms of financial planning as well? Last but not least, if anybody is interested in writing their own book, work with small groups. Let's say, for example, if you have a book club, right? And I will help them with the self-publishing process and just showing if they wanted to use digital resources for their own self-publishing. When we talk about the economics of this business, essentially what I'm asking and what the vision for it is I want to treat teachers as contractors and not only capping their salary, right? And so what that looks like is partnerships and after-school programs. That looks like engaging their summer months. A lot of times when we look at the numbers of the breakdown for teachers, Teachers in general have about 70 more days than the average person in terms of June, July, and August. I think it's like 190 days for a lot of school teachers. For a lot of professionals, you're talking 52 weeks, 40-hour work week. You're talking about 260, so that's 70, in that 70 days, I think there's an opportunity for entrepreneurship or partnership. The way that I look at the numbers, if you will, is when you're talking to, I guess, casting vision for partnering with schools, a lot of times people say, well, where's the money coming from? And I would encourage someone to look at revenue per pupil per school district that can be found on our ed.sc.gov website. And you can look at the annual student disbursement, social, local, state, federal funding, that sort of thing. And on the high end, you see certain school districts, you're at about 22,000, on the low end about 10,000. But somewhere in that range, that's what it looks like if you divide it by 180 days by 8-hour days. And so from there, I go into school districts and I say that I think that my services are worth about $15 per student. And I cap the rate at $1,000. Even though it says 67 students here, sometimes I'll talk to an auditorium full of kids, so 150, 200 kids. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was at a middle school in Blythewood, and that's just normal. And so I think that that's a fair rate. For multiple sessions, 700 for 1,000. Also comparable school functions. If you go to the NBA game, $42, theme park, $37, ride share meal, $20, and adult movies tickets, so it's comparable, and I think that they will get a better value in terms of what we're given. If you look at corporate partnerships, personality assessment, strength finder teams, you're looking at an individual coaching range, 150 to 400. If you're talking per brand, at least right now for this group, 15 plus resources, I think that it's a great value. And small group analysis in terms of workshops, and on average, what people charge in the vein, $20,000 to $5,000. And I think you find the rates comparable. If you're like me and you're hearing, well, how did the teachers actually benefit from this? Well, I think that our company would create value for teachers by facilitating partnerships, helping in trainings, helping to pay for certifications and prompt payments. If you're working with a school district, it takes sometimes a long time to get paid. And so that's the vision of what that looks like, kind of a third, a third, and a third. And it's at the capacity of the teacher partner. And that's kind of what I'm working towards. Where am I right now? Well, this is Grace to Cultivate. Right now, it's a proof of concept business. Basically, I want to kind of earn the right to be able to build these relationships, to be able to transition into push leadership. Our why? It's a posture of gratitude. I believe that the triune God and many other people have invested deeply into my life. As a result, what does it look like to love my neighbor as self? What does it look like to help them work smarter and not just harder? So that skill building, career development, entrepreneurship is a across the board vision of what that looks like. And that's not just the leadership workshops that I talked about, the books. That's also digital content. And so if you go to @Grace to Cultivate at any major social media network, I think we have about 7, from YouTube to Pinterest to Facebook to LinkedIn, you name it. We're there putting out digital content. Right now, I'm the only worker until I can build out a team. I currently have about 20 development school partnerships throughout the state of South Carolina, from Lancaster to Charleston, and hopefully and preferably it'll be able to transition. Where do I think my transition point is? Well, I'm looking at $70,000 in annual gross revenue, pre-tax, of course, and 100 professional sessions per year, 75 school partnerships. From there, I want to get Strength Finder certification, do other type of leadership accolades, and that's kind of where Grace to Cultivate is and where I want to go with it. How can you help with Grace to Cultivate? Facilitating a meeting with leadership. So if you know any schools, AVID, trio clubs, trio organizations, and things of that nature, even vocational rehab, I think that a lot of the resources would help those in the vocational rehab section. Coaches who have a vision past sports, that's another way that we can help as well. So if you know of any, I have personal references, character references, that sort of thing. I would love to just at least have a meeting, just sit down and be able to share how we can possibly partner. You can always purchase a book. Right now, I'm making some changes in my website, and so at this particular time, but if you want to go either at my email, which is at the bottom of the screen, or talk to me afterwards, pick up a book at the Amazon store. One thing that helps writers a whole lot is if you leave an Amazon review or a review. That helps to introduce that writer to other readers that you may not know. Last but not least, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at Grace to Cultivate for entrepreneurs. You can monetize your YouTube channel at 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And that does help me or email me to be added to the newsletter. In summary, teachers deserve to be paid more, and they can be through creative yet ethical means of entrepreneurship. In other words, happy teachers make better students. The problem that we're engaging, low teacher pay, creative solutions for high need students, employee retention and leadership development. Our proposed solution is a business that empowers teachers to lead professional leadership and team builder workshops in schools and organizations. And the goal right now is to grow from Grace to Cultivate LLC to the P.U.S.H Leadership Network or Consulting Group. That's how we can grow it to scale. Does anybody have any questions?
Are you from here?
Yeah, I'm from Orangeburg, South Carolina originally, but I live here in Columbia.
Okay, where did you teach?
I taught in Orangeburg. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you come to get this vision, and like, what would you say, like, when everything's going well, what does it look like?
Sure. I think to start writing, one of the ways I was doing a community survey in inner city Dallas, and one of the things that was really interesting was I was talking to some of the community leaders, and they communicated that one of the ways to leave an impact is to make a mark or do something positive for the young people. Because if you left a mark for the young people, it was a mark for the entire family. And so writing kind of was birthed out of that. Books like Monday's Not Coming, books are kind of everything from, I'm a hybrid between fiction and business. And so kind of putting those two worlds together, looking at great podcasts like Earn Your Leisure. There's podcasts out there that are doing some really cool and innovative things when it comes to casting vision for what the future looks like. And then kind of being able to be more specific as to what I was trying to do. And so that came down to skill building, career development, and entrepreneurship. And that's where the brand came from. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming and presenting your business. I'm gonna be the butthole.
Okay, yeah.
I think you got so much going on and they're all great ideas, but you really need to streamline when you present something like this.
Okay.
You have the books, you have the working with partnering with the schools, you have a lot of different elements. And it's really hard to grasp your clear why and how to engage other than selling, buying your book or leaving a review and those kind of things. So I think part of what will help, in my opinion, and opinions are like, everybody's got one. But one of the things that I think that will help you when you present this is really streamlining it and narrowing in on the key points. All of the other things kind of support the key points, but you need to narrow this presentation in to the key things that you want us to take away and focus on. Specifically in this setting, your entrepreneurial journey, how you came to this, right? Being a teacher, and then that's the most important part, right? That has helped you develop this whole program, right? Figuring out how to streamline that into a presentation that's punchy so you don't lose your audience is going to be key for you. Especially if you're dealing with administrators who don't have a lot of time, who want to see what they're going to be able to, how they're going to be able to fit this into their day, for their students. That's going to be critical for you. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
To piggyback off of what he was saying, I think some advice that I've gotten in terms of speaking is knowing my audience. So in this dynamic, because I do something similar to you to what you do, so I definitely want to speak to you more after. But in this dynamic, they're entrepreneurs, but there's parents, and then he was talking about like administrators, teachers, and things of that sort. So to me, because we do the same thing, I'm taking 1,000 notes. You know what I mean? Like, but to another person, it could definitely lose them per se. So I understand where he's coming from. But my question more or less is, how do teachers respond so far? Because at this moment, all teachers want to be paid more, but not to say they're complainers, but everybody's not a problem solver. So when you're coming with the solution to folks who do abide by the politics, because what you specifically said
Sure.
was, I failed at that. So for the folks who are passing at that, are they receptive to your idea currently?
I would say they have been receptive to, I appreciate the question. They've been receptive to the presentation. I have not had enough time to work with teachers and to be able to brainstorm that process. But that's why I wanted to give a big picture vision of it and then reverse and go backwards on it. But I need more time to be able to develop that. What would that look like? Because I know that time is of the essence, you know, for educators, but that needs the development.
So in coming to present here, is that what you want help with in terms of how to develop it and prepare for it?
I wanted to give, I think I presented to myself, which is probably part of the issue. I'm a person, I'm a big picture person. And so by giving a big picture perspective, my hope was to create buy-in from other entrepreneurs to say, I like what you do. How do you use that with what we're doing, kind of thing. But yeah, I can definitely reassess even what that looks like, that process. But yeah, but I need more feedback from teachers before going forward with Push. But right now, it's just me right now. So that's the goal. But thank you.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job in your presentation. It's tough being out there speaking in public, period. But and I love the idea. But my question is, who pays for the? Is it the schools that pay for the workshops for the teachers, or?
It has been the schools. Let's say, for example, if I'm working with a literacy team and they say, hey, we want to do literacy night. They have a budget that's allotted for that, and they'll pay for a certain amount of books. They'll pay for you to come in as a speaker. If it's someone like, let's say, for example, curriculum resource teachers are the people who also pay for that. Principals are generally in charge of those budgets. But I think my goal when I transition, hopefully, into Strength Finders is that industry, they pay for leadership people to come in. And while some do motivational speeches, I think one thing that I found to be more impactful is to do Strength Finders personality assessments. And then from there, find out how my team works best. And so it will come from a variety of different ways is the answer.
Hey man, my name is Nathan. My wife is a teacher, and so I'm coming at it from a husband standpoint.
Sure.
She's at Spring Valley. She hates her life right now. She's like constantly behind, constantly stressed out. So like I'm low-key stressed out with her
sure.
at the same time.
Sure.
So how with the workshops with what you're providing.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to cast the vision into making this feel like it's not something that they're going to add to their schedule, to their workload, to their school workload? Because if my wife right now doesn't really have time to put lesson plans together and to grade homework and to grade tests, this would probably not be something that she could want to fit into this schedule, right?
It's fair. What right now, I have a partnership with Hayward Gibbs Middle School. And so what they have been doing is pulling students out. So I would say to that particular leader who kind of thinks that way, what does it look like to pull someone out, give teachers more time to lesson plan, to do that sort of thing, and to give them the social and emotional learning that they don't necessarily have to grade per se, but it will enrich the classroom. It will enrich what they're doing. And so I think the creative value for the teacher, honestly, is just have a little more time there. My goal, long-term, big picture, is that if you can go into a place for 2 hours, 3 hours, and get paid appropriately compared to what you're doing and working your gifted area, like, I mean, I think we all kind of want to work in that specific skill area. I think it would add value to them economically as well. So that's a great question. But my thought process is, hey, you guys can work on lesson plans, work on what you need to do, bring this group over here. We'll have them engaged. We'll have them doing games and team builders and, so that's the creative value for the teacher, I think. Great question.
So it's that again. Two things. Generating buy-in is going to be one of the things that you're saying you want from like strategic partners, right?
Yes.
The number one thing they're going to want to know is what's in it for me,
Yes.
right? And there is the altruistic, yes, I'm helping people, but ultimately entrepreneurs, we want to know what the dollars and cents of the
Absolutely.
are, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you put this up here, right, this doesn't speak to an entrepreneur per se,
Yeah.
right? This speaks directly to maybe your teachers, right? And having them buy in. To Nathan's point, teachers are already stressed out, right? My sister is an administrator. She's completely stressed out. If you want buy-in, you want to make sure that you're making it easy and adding value, adding time back, adding all of the things that they are lacking. If that's support, right? You can't get more hours in the day, right? Because they're still going to have to deal with students, they're going to have to deal with admin, right? But you want to make it a no-brainer for them to participate, right? So if they're out, a lot of teachers might say, well, if I'm team building, I'm taking time away from lesson plans. I'm taking time away from grading. I'm doing all these things, and a lot of that, what they call PD, right, professional development, is not viewed as paid time, right? They get comp time and things of that nature. So you got to make it so appealing
Sure.
that it's a no-brainer for them to work with you.
For sure.
And maybe refining how you present that is going to be key for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Nate. And as you are passing the microphone, the creative value, I think, is kind of making that time a little easier. What I mean by that is the fact that as a business, we can facilitate with, let's say you got 80 hours to devote to your lesson plans. We're doing the work. We're saying, hey, at this school, at this particular time, we actually need to be there for 2 hours, And so the vision cast for this group is a big picture vision because I know that you guys will be, hopefully it will pique your curiosity to be able to ask these questions, and I do appreciate that. Thank you.
I was taking this to be something more you'd work with the teachers to do during those summer months when they're not doing the lesson plans and grading and the academic kind of gig. Isn't that where they could make the extra money? And if you, it's like Thaddeus said, and Nathan, if you give them one more thing to do during the school year, somebody's going to die in this process. So, but isn't this more of a, here's a thing you can build and work on during the summer?
Okay, fair assessment. So the 70 hours is where I think that most of the teachers will be able to go into industry and do these leadership development talks, for sure. That's a lot. 70 days is good. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of teachers who do these after school programs and don't get paid anything extra. You see what I'm saying? And so what I'm saying is the same time, effort, and energy that you can exert to what you're doing in your after school program, you would take, 3 sessions a quarter to do that, we could add an additional $1,000, $2,000 to your income. Going back to your point, what I'm saying is a vision for more Uber Lyft than to think about an entrepreneur who's building from scratch. I would say that people in this room were probably entrepreneurs. We're thinking about big picture in that regard. I'm saying to add an additional 250, 300, 500, 1,000. That makes a big difference for someone in that seat. You see what I'm saying?
I'm thinking though, you're saying that this is an additional rider onto like doing after school programs and things of that nature. Is that what you're saying? Or?
I'm saying for the school teacher. Let's say, for example, if I'm a school teacher, right? I'm at A Academy, right? To have enough contracts that we can contract with B Academy. We're asking you to go over there, do this leadership workshop for 2 hours, hour and a half, 3, what have you. When you do this particular session, you're paid. You get what I'm saying? Versus you're part of this leadership group that you are working with, you are diligent to, 90 days out of the year that you may not get paid anything extra. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm making that comparative, not necessarily somebody who's building something from a beginning stage and trying to build out, if that makes any sense.
When you use Uber, Lyft, you're not saying you're Uber, or Lyft,
No.
you're saying that.
I'm trying to give a visual.
Doing Uber or Lyft.
No, I'm trying to give,
Amount of money?
sure, I'm trying to make a comparison. Most people, we get Uber Lyft. We get, I'm turning my car, I'm gonna drive around for 5 hours. We get it, right.
So you're saying instead of that, do this.
The ride share model is what I'm trying to kind of visually, yeah.
It's basically a turnkey assessment, where I don't have to go out and find clients to talk with, I don't have to go, right, I get that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that teachers are already bringing work home every day.
Yes.
And to go and do this outside in the small amount of time that they have after school, before the next school day, and go and talk at a leadership, doing something else for $1,000 or whatnot. I get how that could be appealing to maybe a teacher who doesn't have a family or someone who is single, but most teachers that I know, when they get off from school, which is usually around 5 o'clock before they actually make it home, they've got life, right? The other things that are happening. So I'm concerned that that model of Uber that you're pointing to is kind of a fallacy, right? Because it depends on the time that a person actually has allotted, right? They've already worked a 40-hour week. Teachers work way more than 40 hours.
Sure, I agree.
Right? This says, well, you're still not making enough money, right? Come and do a leadership at another school or another place and do those things. I just don't think that a teacher that is actually invested in their classroom, invested in the growth of their schools already, they don't necessarily have, I think, the time to pursue something like this. Usually what happens is they're pursuing this when they retire.
Okay.
They're doing these things as they leave an admin position, as they leave the classroom. You know, they're no longer a literacy coach, they're doing other things. And this then could be that model for them to start doing those things as they leave the classroom. But I don't think this is a good working model for teachers that are actively working or admins that are actively working in education at the moment.
I think it's a fair assessment. Can I ask you a question? How long did it take you to start your business?
Me?
To get things going?
Took a while.
Yes, okay. Most entrepreneurs, it takes time, right? It took me 3 years of building into this before I got paid the first time, right? What I'm trying to advocate in a general sense is what would it look like to do a training session, training seminar, and to equip you in such a way that instead of putting 3 years, 5 years, whatever into that to build out what we call a side hustle or a side business, what would it look like that you can immediately get paid for doing 3 hours of work, for doing here, here, here. And so it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be perfect. I love this session, I love this engagement, but it makes me even more passionate about it because I believe that there are some ways that we can tweak it, but I do think that there is room to make a difference to it. But thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Along with what Thaddeus said, I don't get that what you're offering would be something every teacher would say, boy, I'd like to do that
Sure.
on top of helping my kids with their homework and yada yada. But
Sure.
maybe the teachers who do not have the family thing to deal with after work, this
Sure.
is a way to supplement income. Or they're retiring out and this is something that I can build into. I think there's gonna be a lot of that pool of people that can take advantage of this, and you're basically finding the gigs for them, and then they just, clock in, clock out as they want to fit it in. So I think there's going to be a lot of them. No, it's not going to be something everybody says,
Sure.
yep, sign me up for more work, because I just love working myself to death.
Sure.
There's going to be clumps of people in that there's gonna be a little set of people in that whole set that could say, yeah, this is kind of cool.
I do believe that.
And I wanted to thank you, Zach, for coming in like with less than a week's notice. Because we definitely asked you to present like last week, so appreciate that.
Cool.
Any other questions or?
Along your entrepreneurial journey so far, what's been your greatest takeaways or learnings that you can share with someone else that wanted to be an entrepreneur?
It's gonna sound really basic and silly, but I use the term, and I put it in my YA fiction book. I put it out. I call it boom clickety, right? What does that mean? I think that for every entrepreneur, with all the fluff, with all the bells, with all the whistles, there is no substitute for one-on-one interaction. I grew up in an insurance household. My family, we sold for Allstate for 30 plus years. And growing up as a kid, one of the things that was really interesting was you would hear the sound of the phone go boom, click, boom, click, boom, click. And that's the core of what entrepreneurship is. It's one call at a time, one email at a time. It's the grind of it all. It's not the bells, the whistles, the fluff. This is great, and I really appreciate this opportunity, but it's still sending emails to 430 schools. Yeah.
Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, is there any potential to take this online by chance or turn this into more of a one-to-many opportunity?
I think the one-to-many is the digital content. And so what I do with the digital content is I break down a lot of the sessions and I seek to monetize that, right? And so if you guys would really help me by going to YouTube and just subscribing to the channel, it's free, something you can free to do. It's at Grace to Cultivate, and you can see it's about 300 videos that are there. So they're kind of broken into a lot of different ways. Also, I do a vodcast, and I invite leaders from who have a heart for communities of color. My goal is to capture 100 different dynamic and diverse professionals. Shantae Darby, who is over Kingdom Culture Media, as a videographer and cinematographer, was actually on that. And so the goal is that kids can reverse engineer their career journeys through looking at professionals from the same kind of neck of the woods. But digital content, I think, is a way to do that.
Yeah, I'm not really referring to more the outbound aspects of the digital content. I'm referring to more of the
I see what you're saying. Okay.
actual workshops themselves and the
Okay.
monetization
We
aspect.
can talk. Is that your field?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. We have a conversation for
Marketing
sure.
Consultant.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
Basically, I'm more curious in the online aspect for the teachers, participating in workshops and turning that into more of an online opportunity, because then that allows people to, further monetize their time.
Sure.
It's less of a commitment as well. It's much easier to do things online in that sense. And then, obviously the question, which I can't answer, would be the impacts of a in-person workshop versus a digital workshop. But from a teacher's perspective or bandwidth perspective, there's obviously a lot more profitability there, a lot more flexibility, and even some teachers or people who theoretically wouldn't be able to physically be able to be in certain locations could actually participate and be a part of that.
That's why I'm in this room. I appreciate this interaction. This is what it's all about. Love it. Thank you.
Yep.
Cool. And what can 1 Million Cups do for you?
Well, first off, consider the subscribing. As I said, check out the YouTube channel. That helps us to monetize 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours. If you want to pick up a copy of a book, please do that. And if you know of anyone in which a leadership workshop on financial literacy, skill building, career development, entrepreneurship would help, I would love to be able to just sit down and have a meeting with them, have a cup of coffee with them. All that would help. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Zach, thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
And like I said,